Senator Brooke was born here in our nation's capital to Edward Jr. and Helen Seldon Brooke. He showed early signs of what a remarkable human being he was by entering college at Howard University at the age of 16. Senator Brooke had planned on becoming a surgeon. However, he changed his course of studies to sociology. Thank you. Senator Brooke is probably most noted for his public service, but that was preceded by a stellar military service with the United States Army. Senator Brooke followed in the footsteps of his father, who had received his law degree from Howard University School of Law. He obtained his LLB in 1948 and his LLM in 1949 from the Boston University Law School. Senator Brooke ran a successful law practice and became heavily involved in community affairs, serving the second vice president of the Boston branch of the NAACP, a member of the board of directors of the Greater Boston Urban League, and director of the Boston Council of Boy Scouts. In 1962, Senator Brooke sought and was elected to the second highest position in Massachusetts, Attorney General. He was the only Republican elected statewide that year, and he was the first African American to be elected to a major state office. During his 2 terms as Attorney General, he battled corruption in government and elsewhere. He endorsed and proposed legislation that resulted in greater consumer protections, ending housing discrimination, and reducing air pollution. Senator Brooke's book, The Challenge of Change, Crisis in Our Two-Party System, was a wake-up call in the early 1960s and is still relevant and poignant today. In the book, the senator challenged the Republican Party to be more responsive to social change. He wrote, "The conquest of space, the soaring increase in our national wealth, the flowering of our arts and sciences, our finest achievements are tarnished while more than 1/10 of all Americans remain second-class citizens because of the color of their skins." And that still rings so true today in 2003. Senator Brooke, noted for many great accomplishments and achievements, to this audience and the civil rights community, is most notably recognized and remembered for his work in partnering with Senator Walter Mondale in obtaining bipartisan support, something we don't hear much of these days, for Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, the Fair Housing Act. This law has been the foundation of the fair housing enforcement activities around the country and continues to be our tool. In Cityscape magazine in 1999, Senator Edward Kennedy had these comments about the passage of the Fair Housing Act. By passing the Fair Housing Act of 1968, Congress took a major step toward realizing the ideals of equal opportunity and equal justice that are at the heart of our American democracy. Senator Brooke, when you look around this room, you see representative, those that continue your fight, that continue from your lead. They fight with vigilance, and tireless energy, and a passion for justice. Following your lead, we fought with many of our colleagues and friends to amend the act. So this is also the 15th anniversary of the amendment to the Fair Housing Act, which just made sense that persons with disabilities and families with children should also have that same equal protection. We owe you, Senator Brooke, such a debt of gratitude. We've talked today about how long we've been in this fight and what we've done, and our naivete coming into it. I naively thought that when I started that the fight would be over by now. We would have solved this problem and gone fishing, or as you are doing these days, gone farming. Didn't happen that way. But what I do thank you most for is that where I thought the problem would be solved in my daughter's lifetime, I'm now a grandmother. But what you've given is that tool that I know they will continue to use and to fight with. We are forever grateful for your unwavering support of civil rights and your active commitment in getting the Fair Housing Amendments provisions added to the Civil Rights Act of 1968. During your career, you have been an inspiration to millions of Americans. Sir, you still inspire us today. And thank you, Lisa Rice, for helping with this research and comments.
Thought I was at Wimbledon with my trophy going across. How do you thank someone like Mary Davis for that very, very warm introduction? Really, it was "This is your life" at Brooke. But the sincerity in which she said what she said really warmed my heart. And I want to thank her. And I want to thank your distinguished president, Shauna Smith, who called and invited me some months ago and said that under any circumstances or any catastrophe or anything else, I had to be here. And I'm sure if you've served under her direction, you know that I'm telling the truth when she says you have to be here, you have to be here. Those ads have said it all. I thought they were magnificent ads. I hope they get played and played and played and played, and that people will see them and act accordingly. And Bernie, I want to thank you for what you did with my dear friend, Walter Mondale. That was a warming interview you had in Minnesota. I wish Fritz could be here. We called him Fritz. That was his name affectionately known. Brought back many memories to me years ago when he and I sat down and crafted legislation. We never knew what it would be at that time. We were somewhat discouraged about what was happening in the country, but we knew it had to be done, and we said, we'll give it a try. He was a Democrat, and he worked the Democratic side of the aisle, and I worked the Republican side of the aisle. And we said, we know we're going to get this through. We kept telling each other that, even though there were some doubts along the line. But I won't repeat everything Walter Mondale said. He said it so well. But we were able to get it through the committee. Sparkman from Alabama chaired the Banking and Currency Committee, and as Walter said, it was kind of funny having this come before the Banking and Currency Committee, but that's what it was called. It was later changed, of course. I asked to be on that committee when I first went to the Senate in 1967. Both Walter Mondale had served as Attorney General in his state, as I had served in my state, so we knew each other before we went to the Senate, as a matter of fact. That's how we started our friendship, which lasted until he left the Senate and went on to higher goals as the Vice President of the United States, as you will remember, and as a Democratic candidate for the presidency. But he's truly a very wonderful man. But you are truly wonderful people. You honor me, but I honor you. You're the people in the trenches. You're the people who have chosen a career of helping people who need help. When I was a young man, in my neighborhood, if a black person moved into a white neighborhood, immediately signs went up all over the neighborhood for sale. They got out. They couldn't live with one black family in a neighborhood of hundreds of people. Conditions were much poorer than they are today. much poorer. Nobody was really interested in housing, and I never could understand that. Housing has never been an issue which politicians and members of the Congress particularly, or presidents, have focused upon. And yet it is the basis, the shelter, where people live. All the social problems that we encounter come from housing. Housing is so important. I remember going to Lyndon Baines Johnson and to Richard Nixon and other presidents, just trying to get them to include the word housing in their message to the Congress. Couldn't be done. And yet there were those who struggled on and on and on to improve housing conditions in this country. Title VIII, Fair Housing Act, was just one step forward. You have carried it much further. You have now formed this organization, which you now celebrate for 15 years in its existence. You've given us hope that we can win this battle. The organization, what do you call it, FAP and FIP? Well, we need FAP, but we also need FIP. And we can't. We need education. It's always we need education. That's important. But we need enforcement. The law. The law is meaningless unless you're able to enforce that law. And it starts at the top. The tone at the top makes the decision about this. The President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Secretary of HUD have a constitutional obligation to enforce fair housing law. It is the law. And the Congress of the United States has a responsibility to adequately fund the programs that enforce the law. I said to one of the members of your distinguished board, you know, you're the people out there in the trenches. And thank God they're the trenches here and not in Iraq or some other place. I just wonder when I see a missile go off, or I see a plane fly, you know, $25 million won't buy any of the things I just mentioned. The money we are spending, and we want national defense, we want security, but I think what could happen if we had just a little of that money to enforce fair housing law in this country. Great civilizations have not always faltered and been destroyed from outside. They get destroyed from within. And that's what we need to watch. Now, I wasn't invited to preach a sermon. But I'm a lawyer, I'm a politician, and an old lawyer and politician at that. I want to leave you with, as you started, a prayer. It's meaningful to me. I hope it will be for you. It's very short. It's God of justice, save the people from the wars of race and creed, from the strife of class and friction. Make our nation free indeed. Keep her faith in simple manhood, stronger than when she began, till she finds her full fruition in the brotherhood of man. For this great honor, I want you to know that I am truly, truly grateful. Thank you.